All right. Excellent. So, hi, my name is Gordon Goodenough. I'm your host today for the first podcast of Ice Hockey Australia. We're joined by Mike Zigomanis. Mike, you were drafted by two different teams, the Buffalo Sabres in '99 and the Carolina Hurricanes in 2001 after a clerical error, I think. And then played 13 years professionally in the NHL, AHL, and over in Sweden. So welcome, and thanks for agreeing to be our first guest.
Thanks for having me on. I can't escape the two drafts that just follow me around everywhere. We always joke around with it anytime I go on any shows, but yeah, it was a little bit of an error. Both parties, we sent in the real contract that we signed, and Buffalo sent in a different copy, got a mix up. And I mean, that's the gist of what happened. But, then it got sent to the NHL offices and the NHLPA offices, and there was a big fight. It wasn't just me. It was a handful of players, but anytime I cross the border still from Toronto to Buffalo, it's only about 2 hours. And every time I cross the border, if it's a hockey fan, they still ask me about they call it the fax problem in some of the articles that came out after, but the clerical error, yeah, we'll call it that for this podcast.
Yeah. I was reading a couple of articles. I saw it got a little bit political, but you got selected higher the second time that you were drafted, so that's good.
Yeah, turned 64 into 46. Can't complain. I got to go to South Beach the second time around. My family didn't have to come. They came the first time. I said, you saw me get drafted once, you don't have to come the second time, right? So I went down with one of my best buddies, and we spent a week in South Beach and went to the draft. It was a lot of fun. And looking back at the pictures, because you know how you go, it's all a bunch, you're 18 years old, right? The average age for the draft, and usually your family's with you and your girlfriend. But it was just me and my buddy. So look, I bought one of the pictures from the photographers after. It's just me and my buddy doing all the family photos. So we had a great time with it, and it was unfortunate what happened with Buffalo, but I ended up finishing my career there with the Rochester Americans. So it's funny how life's like that, full circle.
Yeah. Had you, like, going into the draft, had you been hoping that a certain team selected you, or did you have a feeling that Carolina, was there a sense that they were going to draft you, or?
No, not really. When I went and did all the interviews again, I was lucky to have a good third and fourth year, the 2 years after my draft year. So, when played in the World Juniors as well. So I had a couple good years, which helped a lot. Usually you go further down the draft. You don't go higher. And a lot of times, sometimes the team that you didn't sign with, usually they pick you again and hold your rights. So then you're really in a bind after that. So, Buffalo was, we heard rumors they were going to pick me again at 50 something. I think they had to pick 10 picks later, and they said they're going to pick me again, and it's going to be on our terms. But, we pretty much just, sent every team, an email saying that this is what the contract was. This is what we both agreed on. I didn't want to enter the draft, but it's amazing the controversy that came from that. But not the way you want to start your pro career off. But was lucky to sign with Carolina before camp in the minors, because I played my first full pro year with the Lowell Lock Monsters, and not it's not how most players do it, but it was quite the experience, and it's fun to talk about now.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned, because that was a year, so that was following the World Junior tournament, I believe that you were part of in 2001. Was that your second draft year?
Yeah. So I played World Juniors my last year eligible. So yeah, it was 2001. Yeah, we won a bronze medal. It was a great experience in Moscow, in Russia. So yeah, and then the draft comes up. So if you don't sign in your draft, then you go back and you do. Yeah, the team has 2 years to sign you. Then if you don't, you end up re-entering the draft. So that's why I went back in the draft after my fourth year of junior and my last year of eligibility for World Juniors.
Yeah. I just actually had a question pop up about the 2001 World Juniors. I think that was you were part of a team with Jason Spezza, Joe Bowmeister, and then some other players, including Rafi Torres and Steve Ott. And I saw a rumor. I don't know if you're able to verify that Steve Ott, apparently, who's known as an agitator, he learnt several languages to be able to chirp some of the players on the teams in their own language. Have you heard anything about that, or?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I remember being in the hotel. So we all stayed in the same hotel called the Ukraina in Moscow, and we played Team USA in the quarterfinals. And we were both kind of eating our pregame meals, and there was a couple of the U.S. players. I think it was Rick DiPietro who was in net, who's a great guy. I've known him my whole life, and he comes on my morning show every once in a while. Lives in New York City now. And he kind of chirped him like, yeah, you better get ready for today. We're coming after you. You're going to lose. Like, he just chirped him on the way out because everyone's keeping everything, pretty cordial, in the hotel. And when you're eating, you're always around guys coming in out of the hotel, the lobby or elevators, and you don't get too crazy. But yeah, he kind of said something to him. And that was pretty big for us at that time. And, Steve Ott, he obviously, what kind of game he plays. He plays it hard, honest game. Like you said, agitator, gets under the skin of his opponents, just a real hard worker, and, somebody who was always tough to play against. In the NHL when I didn't get a chance. I remember him from junior a lot, but definitely the NHL. Just that's the kind of player he was in junior, and he took that to the NHL and knew what was successful for him. But yeah, I always I think he scored the goal too. Like he chirped DiPietro and said he was going to score on him, and then actually scored in the game. I think that was like the crazy part of it, where we all kind of laughing, jumping up and down on the bench. So that's Steve Ott.
Yeah. No, yeah, it seems like an interesting team. So just going back to your bit of your hockey journey, I guess. What age did you start playing hockey, and kind of who influenced you in that regard?
Yeah, I started young, 5-6 years old, got put on skates, playing house league, rep hockey, and then my cousins were into the game a lot. I grew up playing a lot of soccer, so hockey wasn't the main sport. I loved hockey. It was everywhere, right? It's Canada's game. You see it on TV everywhere. All the kids are doing it at school, whether it's ball hockey, foot hockey was big in recess, and it was a part of our lives a lot. But my cousins played, so I naturally just kind of followed them. They're all a couple around my age, a couple that were older, and I get a lot of equipment handed down from them. So it was started young, yeah, and just fell in love with the game. It just was one of those things where it was everywhere, right? But soccer was definitely my natural sport growing up, and something I played even through high school when I was in the OHL, and I transfer at the end of the season back to the school near. So I played 2 hours from Toronto and Kingston. I transferred back when the season was over. I would join the soccer and baseball team in junior. I don't think my coach would have been too happy if he knew I was playing other sports and the season ended. But I always grew up loving soccer, but hockey just kind of took over. I guess at the age of in and around 12 and 13, my parents just kind of said you had to pick one, because it was the schedule of both hockey and soccer was a lot, and it's tough to support, obviously. And yeah, just before you know it, you have scouts knocking at your door, and then you find out what the OHL is and CHL and junior hockey. A couple years after that, you're getting drafted, and all of a sudden you're a pro. And after a couple of years of that, 13 years, it's over, and you're doing radio. So it happens. It happens pretty quick. It's blink of an eye. But yeah, I started young.
Yeah. So you mentioned about doing the second sport like soccer, and I think obviously here in Australia, it's with the climate, people generally play another sport. Even if they do play ice hockey, they play another sport. How do you think playing a secondary sport affected you with your development? Did it benefit? How do you think it helped you?
Well, I think all hockey players should not play 12 months a year. I know there's a lot of talk, and I did it for a number of years too, right? I did the 5, 6, 7 tournaments and the practicing every week throughout the summer, but I think it's important to let kids play another sport, let them see different, play with different kids, different families. It makes you more athletic. It keeps you hungry, I think, more than anything, which I think gets overlooked, but it's such a big market right now. Hockey development, hockey coaching in the city of Toronto and Canada, that the summer leagues they have now and the summer development camps, it's tough, right? Because a lot of kids are doing it, and it's almost, if you're not doing it, you're behind. So that puts a lot of players and families in a tough spot. I still think that they should be playing another sport in the summer. Once your season ends in March, February, March, April, do something else after that. And then when you come back in September, you'll be refreshed. You'll have, you have more energy for the game. I think the biggest thing that separates the best players from players that don't end up playing pro hockey or junior or later on in life, it's just a love for the game. And you can see that even in the NHL. The best players just love it more. And I've played with some of the greatest players to ever put skates on. And, I always get asked, like, what's the difference? Like, what is it? Is it physical? Is it mental? Are they just more skilled? And I always, my answer is they just love it more. They enjoy going to the rink every day. And I think if you're doing it, at a young age and you're playing 12 months a year, it's tough to really miss it and to keep that energy alive. And I see that a lot when kids, when they become teenagers and 14, 15, 16, they fall out of love with it. There's other things to do. You have different hobbies, hormones change. And if you're playing hockey all the time and you're in that grind 24/7, it's tough to really collect yourself and to be refreshed and have the energy that you need and, that love for the game to be successful.
Yeah, good point. Just on that, about finding that balance, I guess, with maintaining the love for the game and the hours that you pour onto the sport. Did you find that balance leading up to your time in the OHL? Like, how much time were you dedicating to both on and off ice activities and developing key skills?
Well, in the OHL and NHL, once you get to that level, it's pretty much a 12-month a year. I mean, it's a job. Once you get to the OHL, there's nothing junior about it or minor league, right? It's a pro league. It's 68 games, and it's a wake-up call, right? I can remember my first year playing in the O. It was 66 games back then, and it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, my first year, we used to play 4 games in 4 nights. And prior to that, I was playing minor hockey, 40 games a year, playing 1 game a week, and you'd have the odd tournament. So that was, I think junior hockey is a big wake up for a lot of guys. If you really want to do it and make a profession out of it, you have to find a way to find something about it where you can find that creativity that you need to play the game. I don't care what area I don't care what you're good at in hockey. It's a creative game. You have to find something you love about it, which I've talked about, and finding that energy. And that's a big thing, right? It gets tough a lot of parts of the season, right? And I experienced that a lot my first year, just playing so many games. It's tough physically. It's even tough more mentally, I found. And that really separates what kind of career they have, or even if they make it out of junior, right, after 3-4 years. So yeah, I don't think it was as tough in junior. I still was in the gym all summer, but then when I got to the pro level, yeah, it's 2-3 weeks off at the most. And then all of a sudden you're in the gym constantly. Then you're back on the ice by July, and you're skating 4 or 5 times a week for 2 months. You might take a couple of days off before camp in September, but there's no real time off. And you mix in injuries, surgeries. I had 7 surgeries in my career, and that really sets you back and makes things even more challenging. And you hear guys that get surgery and they're off for 4 months. It's not a vacation for 4 months where you just sit on the beach. It's so much work to kind of get back into it. So yeah, the junior level, pro level, it's if you're not working 12 months a year, then you're definitely behind.
Yeah. So based on that, if you as a player, you're in that environment in the OHL where it's a grind, you're as you say, it's a pretty full schedule. What do you do to set yourself apart as a player from the other players? Like say if if your best asset is is your shot, do you just train and focus on your shot to make that even better to set yourself apart, or do you focus on other aspects of your game to make it more rounded? Does that change between players? What's been your kind of perspective?
Well, I won't specify whether it's junior or pro, but I'll give you an example from my pro year. So I had my first real full season in Phoenix. I played 75 games or 70. I couldn't even tell you. Mid 70s out of 82. I had 14 goals, 23 points. I was averaging probably 13 minutes a game, 14 minutes, which was a lot. So I'd only been a 4 or 5 minute a game, 20 games a year player prior to that. And I had a good season. I was penalty killing. I'd be thrown on the power play once in a while. I was pretty much a fourth liner, but I get thrown into that third line role sometimes. I take big draws. I felt part of the team, and I was. The hard part, or what I didn't realize, is that you can't just bottle that up and try to do the same thing the next year. You have to get better. You have to find ways to improve your game, find some aspect. You can't just go out and work hard in the summer and expect everything to be the same come that next September. I'm sure some guys do it, but I feel like that's just the 1% of the guys in the game. The guys that are making 9, 10, 11, 12 million a year, they're going to have a job when they come to camp. They're going to be making their money. They're going to get their goals. They might have 30 instead of 45, but they're always going to have that spot. So for a guy like me, that's the one thing I wish I would have learned earlier in my career, whether it was junior or my first couple of years. And I'm not saying I never tried to get better and add new skills, work on my shot, add face-offs. But when you do have a successful year, you can't just take it for granted, expect it's going to be the same. It's something I learned even away from hockey, is that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And I'm a big believer in that. And it's no different if you're an athlete, a hockey player. You have to find a way to get better every day, because it's one or the other. No one ever stays the same.
Did you have someone that was able to teach you that at a young age, like a coach or someone to help you make that kind of that adjustment between, even playing in, Pee-wee and minor to playing in juniors to the NHL? Was there someone that guided you along those kind of steps? Because they're kind of, I guess, transitional leaps with kind of new skills or that you need to be able to adapt. Was there someone that helped?
Yeah, I was close with my parents, my family, really supportive of my development as a hockey player and as a person. I was lucky. I kept in touch with, some of my mentors and teachers as a kid. And when I got to pro, you could lean on certain guys and certain coaches. But it's a culmination of all of that, right? But I mean, you have to learn it, and you have to go out there and do it yourself, right? You're not gonna. I never had anyone. I didn't have someone I could call every night if something wasn't going well. I played with some great teammates and guys that I play with that I still consider friends today, and we don't chat as much as we'd like, but definitely keep in touch with guys. It's So I didn't really have a former player that I could really lean on in tough times. Kind of went through all of that. You go through a lot of that stuff. Solo, and I didn't have an older brother that played. My dad never played in the NHL, so definitely nobody on that side of things. But I was lucky to have the support of my family and my close friends. And hockey wasn't always the most important thing, because I mean, at the end of the day, it is just a game. It's hard to see that when you're in it. If your healthy scratched or the puck's not going in or the coach is not happy with you, or you get sent down again for the 30th time in your career, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a game. But you do it your whole life. You do it as your job. You want to be successful, and you want to make sure you're at your best, right? Because that's your livelihood, and it's what you identify with. But yeah, I was lucky. I had a great support group around me.
So tell us about later on in your career. You've made the NHL. You spent a few years between the AHL and the NHL, and then you find yourself on the Pittsburgh Penguins team, which would win the Stanley Cup that season, sharing a locker room with Crosby, Malkin, Sergei Gonchar. What did you learn from being in that sort of environment and being part of that achievement to win a Stanley Cup?
Yeah, definitely the best team I played on. Getting a chance to play with Crosby and Malkin, two of the best in the game of all time, and just seeing how they prepare and how they practice, and it was that team that got put together was one of the best. A lot of hardships too. It wasn't just I got traded there after their first two games, and they played two games in Sweden overseas, and then when they came back home, I got traded to them, so I ended up playing my first game in their home opener. There are a lot of struggles throughout the year. Everyone thinks it was just smooth sailing for them, but out of the playoffs, at one point, I got injured. I had surgery on my right shoulder. They had a lot of guys in another lineup, and 10th place at one point. Michael Therrien, got replaced with Dan Bylsma as the head coach, and that really changed things around. And then guys just kind of found their game. Guys got healthy. And in the playoffs, so many things have to go right. You need big goals at the right time. You need timely saves. There's so much that go into winning a Stanley Cup. It truly is the hardest trophy to win. But I didn't get to play in the playoffs, but got cleared for the finals and got to practice with the guys throughout the playoffs and just around them every day. So it was, they were always welcoming, and I was just like one of the guys that were in every night. They were, a great bunch of guys, and had a lot of fun that year. Pittsburgh is a great city. The whole organization is first class. Mary Lemieux's, one of the nicest guys in the game. Loved playing for him. He knew everything that was going on. Even me on a fourth line, penalty killer face-off guy that is not that big part of a team, but he'd always, know what was going on with you, and talk with me in the locker room and stuff, and just had a great experience there. I still get down to Pittsburgh at least once a year, go and play golf at one of the local golf courses with some friends I have there. So I had nothing but great memories in Pittsburgh. Getting my name on the cup, winning it there. That was it's a special place, and somewhere I still have a lot of friends in the city.
Would you say that was the highlight of your career, or was it something else?
Yeah, definitely up there. Yeah, I think playing your first NHL game and getting your first goal, that when that happens, it's a big moment for a player and his family. Winning a Stanley Cup is obviously up there. I would have liked to have won one more as a player. You never know if coaching down the line or involved with a team, if that can happen again. It's just quite an experience, and maybe someday again. But those were big. The world, playing any kind of world championship or an international event, under 17 was a great experience. My first time in international play for Team Ontario. We won the gold medal against the Czech Republic in like triple overtime. So I definitely remember those days. Under 18s were in Slovakia. And then, as we were talking about before, the World Juniors in Russia, those were all, great moments in my career. Something I remember. My parents got to come to all three of them and watch, and got to share that experience with them. But the Stanley Cup and your first game, those are definitely, times you don't forget.
Yeah. So while playing in the NHL, with your obviously, workouts are important. Nutrition is important. I did a bit of reading where I think that you were one of the, maybe not the first, but one of the part of the first wave of some players who have started to go vegan with their diet, and you took that up midway through your career. Why did you choose to go vegan, and what sort of performance benefits did you notice?
Yeah, so I stopped eating red meat. That's kind of how it all started. I had a friend that was vegetarian, and he's telling me how much better he felt, and I was like, I can't be an athlete without, red meat or meat in general, or am I getting my protein? And he was telling me all the different ways, and he was feeling better, and that he could do it, and different athletes, and there's Ironman that do it, and I started reading up on a bunch of guys. They're Ironmans. I'm like, well, if an Ironman can be vegan and finish off one of these events, surely I could do it as a player. And if it's going to decrease inflammation, if it's going to make me have more energy, better sleep, why not give it a shot? So I started with red meat, and then totally went to all meat, and then from there gave up all dairy, and then I gave up all seafood. And it was a process over a couple of years, and then I did about 5 years full vegan, playing in the NHL and AHL. I finished my last 3 seasons in the American Hockey League, and it wasn't easy. It's tough to cook by yourself, and you're cooking all vegetarian meals, and then the even tougher part is when you're traveling. So the team would have to order you a special meal when you're going to different cities and different hotels. So that was a challenge, trying to play and be a vegan athlete at the same time, especially a hockey player. And there wasn't many of us. I had heard of the odd guy that I would say was 99% plant-based, but would never classify himself as that. I had a couple people pick it up in newspapers, and they thought it was a big story. So, I just kind of give it a little bit of publicity, and, let people out there know that, there's different diets for different people. And I'm not saying it's a diet for everyone, but if it's something you're thinking of trying, Ironman do it, professional hockey players do it, professional athletes do it. My diet now is, I would say, 99% plant-based. I don't use the word vegan anymore. I don't like being labeled with anything. So, and I've done some nutrition talks, and I usually start off my nutrition talk by getting rid of the label. And because I feel like people that do make that change, it's like they have that steak or that piece of seafood or that block of cheese, and they're just like, okay, well, I'm not healthy anymore, and they just totally fall off, right? And then they're eating cheeseburgers every day for a month. So it's, if you want to make that change, you don't need to label yourself as a vegan. Just, if you want to go plant-based, I think it's great. It's something I am right now. I do have the odd piece of cheese if it's in my salad. If I might have seafood the odd time if I'm out and there's, nothing to order that's vegetarian. So I don't label myself 100% plant-based anymore. I just kind of go with plant-based, and it's, there are, 4 or 5 months of time of a year where, I am full vegan, but I don't like the labeling of it. But yeah, I usually start off these nutrition talks by having people, who's vegan here, and they all put their hands up, and then I'm like, who's had honey? And then half the hands go down. And then I'm saying, well, who's had red wine? And then even more. And then by the end of, I started with 200 hands up. Then I've got 4 hands up. And I said, well, red wine is processed with, there's a part of the fish they actually use for a lot of red wine. And if you have honey, you're technically not vegan. So I kind of squashed the label in some of these talks. Because it's technically you're not vegan, so that's why we're going to use plant-based from now on. But it definitely helped with inflammation, but it's a tough transition. If I was a big meat eater before, and dairy, it's not easy to make that transition. I think it's easier today than it was when I started 15 years ago. There's restaurants everywhere. Everyone can make vegetarian meals. You can pretty much on any corner get something. I mean, especially in Canada. I was in Australia in 2015. It was a very veg-friendly country. So, it's just, do your research, do your homework. There's ways to, make that diet healthy if you want it to be.
Yeah, I read, I think Georges Laroque was plant-based.
Georgie.
And Zdeno Chara has recently gone to plant-based. So they're two, fairly big units that
Yeah.
I think of bucking that stereotype of you need to be a meat and potatoes guy to be physical and to survive the grind. But I was reading somewhere that most ultra marathon runners are actually they are on a plant-based diet, which is interesting. What about your strength and conditioning program? What did that look like in the NHL? What worked for you?
Yeah, well, every team has their own, strength and conditioning guys. So you just follow team programs, and then I'd have my own guy in the summertime, or I'd get a program for my team. Towards the end of my career, it was all rehab. After hip surgery, ab surgery, 2 shoulder surgeries, I had a neck issue from a hit. I had hand surgery, so I was pretty much doing rehab programs all summer. But I trained with Mike Camilleri I played in the NHL for a long time, and I found the best training program year. I used to do 6 days a week, and I'd work out in the morning 3-4 hours, then I'd work out in the afternoon 3-4 hours just in the gym on getting bigger with minimal cardio. And then I started working out with Mike Camilleri at 6-7 years into my pro career. We were doing, it was still kind of crazy. When I look back on it, it was this training, it was way over training, but it's something that worked for both of us. We'd meet at the track at 8, warm up. Our track coach would come in at 8:39. We'd be there for 2 hours to 11. Then it was a quick shake. We'd go weightlift and for a couple hours. After that, we'd go and skate. After that, I'd go home, eat, have a nap, and then we'd come back in the afternoon and do some kind of Pilates, yoga, core workout. And after that, we'd golf most days. So I'm talking like I'd be up at 6:30, and I wouldn't leave the golf course till 8, 9, and we did that. And the good part about that, it's a crazy day, and it was a lot of training, right? Weights a couple times, Pilates, yoga, track workouts on the ice. But we only worked 4 days, so we did a Monday to Thursday. Friday was completely off. Usually do some therapy and rehab. And then Saturday, we do a circuit most of the time, unless we were completely taxed. We take off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I felt like that was the most refreshed I was mentally for my season, instead of the, 5-6 days a week where it was really tough and you couldn't get away from the game. So that 4 days on, 3 days off, I found really, really effective. But after that, I started with I had hip surgery and ab surgery, and the body slowly started to fall apart.
Yeah. So with it seems like a lot of that training was off ice, which is helpful for players here. So putting on your Australian ice hockey hat for a minute, are there any training tips that you could give to some of the local players here where ice time is severely limited? How could players improve their game? And what do you believe is the most important skill to develop when they're young? So how can they maximize their limited ice time?
Well, cardio and conditioning is a big one you can kind of take care of. I think running's great for the hockey player. When I played in Sweden, these guys ran every single day. Guys would run 2 miles before a game just to get ready. So running was a big part. I think it's great for your core. I think it's great for your overall body, health of your muscles, your bones. It's a great exercise. I think it's good to strengthen your ankles, your knees. It's great for your hips. I know there's a lot of chiropractors and doctors that will disagree with me, but it always worked for me, and it worked for a lot of guys that weren't injured for a lot of their career. So become a good runner. You can always do core exercises, body weight exercises, squats, push-ups, pull-ups. You can do all the core planks and stuff like that, leg raises. That's the kind of conditioning stuff you can do if you're young, say you don't have a gym. Grab a plastic puck. You can grab a golf ball. You can grab one of those orange ball hockey balls, and you can do all the different kind of stick handling drills. Find something that slides a little bit. If you got a piece of plastic, you can throw on the ground. Spray a little. I don't know what if you guys have like the DW40 or whatever. Something that can help you, slide with the ball or puck, and you can kind of work and stick handle. I think that's big, and just to keep your hands ready and, your wrists and forearms so they're conditioned. There's slide boards out there that's getting a little bit more technical, more heavier equipment, just doing the slide board, making sure you keep your legs conditioning, your hips, your groins, your TFLs, have them all ready. So when you get back on the ice, you're not pulling groins and popping groins and, having all the hip flexor issues. So you can do all that kind of stuff. Track workouts are great. Go to a local, if there's after the pandemic, if there's a track coach that's, with sprinters and stuff, just join one of them. It's, I think it's a great workout. It keeps you flexible, keep your speed up. And, I think it's, it can help a lot of hockey players especially if they don't have ice time.
Yeah, good advice. So you're involved with some coaching with the University of Toronto hockey team, I believe. How did you get into coaching? Is that something I know you mentioned it before, potentially you'd like to be a part of a Stanley Cup maybe as a coach. Is that something that you're interested in getting fully immersed in?
Yeah, so I had someone reach out to me about coaching a university team in the city, and it's not the one that I'm an assistant coach at University of Toronto. It was another team, and I said, I don't know, head coach. It's a lot of responsibility. I don't want something full time. I want something kind of part time where I can get away. And I was doing radio at the time for Sportsnet and doing some TV hits. So just reached out to the other teams, wondering if there's an assistant coaching job available if you're going to add anyone. And I was lucky to meet up with Ryan Medell, who's the head coach of University of Toronto, and hit it off, and Andrew Dovey, the assistant coach there, and we all kind of got along in a meeting and decided that they wanted to add me to the staff, and it just kind of worked out with my schedule. I'm not there every single game. I probably make 21, 22 games of the 28, and I'm there for over half the practices. So I'm still around the team a lot. This year we only got to practice. Obviously the season got canceled. But it's been a great experience. The kids on the team are great. Loved working with them. Like I said, Ryan and Andrew, great coaching staff, and just a great spot to be. Good culture. Lots of energy. Guys are excited to go on the ice every day. They want to learn. They want to get better. We finished first in the conference last year. We had a tough first round exit, but definitely big in the 2.5 years that I've been with the university. Huge improvements, the quality of play from our guys. And, like I said, the it's definitely changed. And it's, you never know if coaching's in the cards down the line. It's something I just kind of, I enjoy doing it. It's a part-time thing there. And you never know, I've had some OHL teams reach out to do more of a full-time thing. It just with the radio and TV and Sportsnet right now, it's not something that's possible. But down the line, I love coaching. I coach minor hockey when I'm in the city as well, and I do stuff on the weekends. So I'm still doing that development work there, the UFT and coaching. So I'd always thought I'd get into it, and it's just when a player and some of the minor hockey players, when they really engage themselves and they want to learn and get better, there's nothing better from a coaching or development standpoint. And, that's what really drives me to be a coach and love working with kids that want to get better. And that's kind of what the setup's like at UFT. And it's exciting to go to the rink every day.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned about, coaching. You thought about it during your career a little bit. And some other things like post career. Yeah, how important do you think it is to have a plan after hockey, and what's that like, knowing that as a professional, unlike many other industries, that you've got a finite time as a player, that you need to, there's life after hockey that you have to prepare for.
Yeah, it's tough. Right, because you're playing pro hockey, and it's, well, what are you going to do after? And it's always, well, I'm still playing. And are you playing, or are you trying to get ready for after? It's a tough balancing act, right? You do want to get ready for life after hockey, but at the same time, it's 12 months a year. It's hard to really, keep doors open and have an idea what you want to do while you're still playing, right? You don't want to be thinking, you don't want one foot out the door while you're still playing pro hockey. And that was something I struggled with. And I didn't have anything planned on coaching or media. I wasn't really into anything. I definitely knew I wanted to travel after hockey for a bit. That got put on hold. I had a career-ending concussion and neck injury. So I was doing a lot of therapy before I got to travel for a couple of years, and then got into coaching, and the media thing kind of developed from there. But it was it's tough, right? So I respect the guys that they have their podcast out now, they write books, or they have a clothing line, or they're reaching out to different teams on scouting and coaching, and that's great, and it's something I suggest a lot of guys do while they're still playing. But it was just something I found difficult to do while I was still playing. I wanted to, be 100% and give everything into my pro career, and then would decide to, look more into life after hockey once it was actually done.
Yeah. Is there any advice after your career and looking back that you would give to a young Mike Zigomanis?
Oh boy, how much more time we got? Oh, where do I start? Yeah, it's I obviously, if you can go back in time, there's a lot of things you would do differently. I would probably train a little bit differently, not really more, but I'd be more smart about it. I think I wore my body out a lot in junior and when I first got to pro. But when I say that, it was almost like I trained. It was more mental than physical, right? You just want it so bad that you'll do anything. And there's times in your career when there's nothing you can do. You literally have to go out on the ice and produce and fit in with a team, and they've got to like you. And that's how you have to do certain things to make teams and be a pro. But there's a lot of downtime in the summertime during the season. You might be in the minors, you might not be playing. And for me, it was, especially in the summertime when the season wasn't on, I would just train. It was my way to stay mentally in it, like you were doing something right. But I think I definitely overtrained during parts of my career. So that would be one thing. Yeah, it's that's the big one. I had some tough years off the ice personally, and a lot of players had no idea kind of what was going on, and I kept that really private. But it's not a great way to be a teammate, and you want to let guys know what's going on with you, or if there's something wrong, and going through tough times, because a lot of time I would bring that to the rink with me, and whether you're not the happiest guy in the morning for practice, or you're a grump at games when things aren't going well. So usually it had nothing to do with hockey. It was just stuff that was happening off ice. And there's a lot of times I wish I didn't bring some of the stuff that was happening away from the game, and, bringing that to the arena, and, just hoping I was, could have been a better teammate for sure in certain years. But, nobody really, I didn't talk about a lot that was going on, anything off ice. So that was, if I could have a do-over, I would definitely handle those years differently. Yeah, those are the two big ones. I won't keep dragging this on. Looking back, it's easy to say, oh, I'd do this different and that different, or, try, if there's young hockey players listening to this, and, just make you deep down, listen to your gut. You know what to do in a lot of situations. And when you make wrong decisions, listen to your parents, listen to your guardian there. That's the biggest thing. Don't fight with your parents at the rink. Listen to them. They've been there before. Yeah. It's some of the best advice you'll get is from your parents or your mentors. And, just listen to your gut, listen to your, listen to your heart. If something feels right, do it. If something doesn't smell right, or you feel uncomfortable, you can always step away from the situation. Don't be afraid to say no. And, just listen to that voice deep down inside you, whether it's in sports or, outside of sports in your personal life. That's my advice.
Good advice. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. So how can people find your work? I don't know if you're on socials. Is there anything you'd like to plug or?
Yeah. Well, before that, I'm involved in a couple of foundations in Canada. So 360 Kids is a big one. It's youth homelessness. It's outside the city of Toronto. And we work with, they do a lot of great stuff with day programs, bringing kids in, offering meals, transition programs. There's a whole section at the hub, they call it, where, there's counseling. There's a place to stay overnight if you're stuck, and it's a big issue in Toronto and outside of Toronto, which is where I grew up. So I do a lot of work with 360 Kids, and it's something that it's something I really want to help out with. And I got involved because I did some work with Hockey Helps the Homeless, which are a bunch of tournaments that raise money for the homeless in Canada. So then I just got involved with the 360 Kids at one of the charity events, and happy to, there's great people working for them, and I'm very fortunate to be, lend a hand when I can, whether it's just social media help and spreading the word, or being involved with one of their 360 experiences, where once a year in end of February, March, you stay outside for 12, 13 hours, right? You take a sleeping bag and they give you $5, and you have to sit out and sleep outside, and you see what it's like as a youth homeless person. It's hard because these are kids, and a lot of them are still going to school, and they're going to high school. So that's one thing I'm involved in. Another foundation I'm involved with is Baycrest, which raises money and for care and research for people with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. My father passed away from Alzheimer's about 6 years ago, so it was something that I wanted to get involved with, and I do some work with Alzheimer's Ontario and Alzheimer's Society of Toronto, and try to help them out whenever I can with different events. But Baycrest, I'm on one of the committees for the Scotiabank Pro-Am. Every year we do a 3-day event where it's a draft, and they bring all these old players back, Wendell Clark, Lanny McDonald, Doug Gilmore. So all the great names and, recent stars, they bring us out, and I help, putting that on. And we didn't get a chance to do that this year with the pandemic, but hopefully this following year we'll be able to put that tournament on. And it's a day of the draft, and then you do two days of inter squad games, and you get to play against different NHLers. So it's a fun 3-day event, and Baycrest Foundation does a lot of amazing things with, like I said, the research and the care. And, it's another group there that they put a lot of work in and raise a lot of money and do a lot of good things for the city of Toronto and the province of Ontario. For social media, Mike Zigomanis, at Mike Zigomanis on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I think it's Mike Zigomanis too. I don't spend as much time there, but yeah, I'm on the Instagram and Twitter. I don't have that TikTok that everyone has. Maybe one of these days I'll get on there too. But those are the two main ones. And then, if you want to listen to the show, I host a sports show from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Toronto, and you can get us on podcast pretty much anywhere. You can even download the Sportsnet app on your smartphone and tune in that way. There's a number of ways to find it, but the show's called Lead Off with Ziggy and Scotty Mac, and obviously I'm Ziggy. But that's I'm kind of doing that, and like we talked about before, just doing the coaching thing for U of T, and do a little bit of Leafs Nation Network TV. I was the minor league team here at the Toronto Marlies. I do some intermission analysis on TV, so get to dabble a little bit of that, and seeing what the TV side of things are like in the media world.
Yeah, interesting. It's quite a wide variety of interests. if maybe later, if you we'll get you to stay on the line and you can pass on some of the deets about the charities, and we can include that, how people can find them and support them if they want.
All right.
A final question here. What are three? Would you say we've asked you to condense your career and bring out three life lessons from it? What would they be in no particular order?
Well, I kind of touched on them a little bit. I'd say, just find a way to, love what you do. Life is short. Whether it's sports or you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, whatever you want to get into, find something you love and, find something where you jump out of bed every day. I think it's important. I'm at 40 years now and life goes by, in a blink of an eye. So that's definitely one thing when no matter what you're in, if you're not getting better, if you're not thriving, you're sliding. That's a nice way to put it. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And it's a tough one to learn. And I didn't learn it till later in life, but that's another big lesson. Hopefully you take away. A third one. Oh my goodness. If there's something you're going to get into and you have no experience, always say yes if it's something that interests you and it's a passion, and then learn how to do it later. I kind of feel like I've been in that spot a couple times in life, where I have absolutely no experience or no clue what I'm doing, and I decided to say yes, and then I learned how to do it later, and I'm thankful for those opportunities.
It's good advice, especially on the spot. So thanks for that, Mike. That's great. Thanks for being so generous with your time, and
thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's great. Great chatting with you guys.
Ice Hockey Australia and ice hockey community in Australia.
Hey, I'd love to come over one day if you guys want to do a couple-week camp. I'm there. Send me a plane ticket. I'll be there. And how long does it take? 2 days to fly there?
Yeah, it's a 2-week quarantine. It's it's a bit of a struggle, but yeah, definitely once this is all over, that'll be great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks a lot.